We're going live in 1, 2, and 3.
You're listening to eLearnChat, where talk is knowledge.
Hello and welcome to eLearnChat, our new podcast featuring prominent leaders, shakers and movers in the e-learning and training industry.
And good morning, everyone. I'm Rick Zanotti, and this is eLearnChat, episode number 42. With me is Jean Francois. How you doing today, Jean?
Hello. Fantastic. Good morning, everybody. Welcome.
You know, we keep complaining that it's chilly out here in California. We've got with us today a special guest, Christopher Allen from Allen Interactions. And Chris, how are you today?
Good morning, everybody. I'm great.
Now, Chris, are you the product manager or director of the ZebraZaps product?
I am the product marketing manager for ZebraZaps and have the pleasure of working with a lot of great people from the original authorware team. Cool. As well as my last name alludes, I work with my dad, which has just been a wonderful year-and-a-half experiment, and I think we've maybe crossed the threshold of it stop being an experiment and just being a lot of fun.
Oh, that's great. Well, congratulations. And
thanks.
I've met your dad a couple of times in meetings that we've had with the Captivate team years ago and stuff like that, because I know and I know he was one of, if not the chief designer, one of the main designers of authorware. And we were talking a little bit in the pre-show that we all still miss that product. I know a lot of people who miss it, myself included, because it was just probably one of the best authoring tools. I still think it's better today than many of the authoring tools around, and this was designed in the 90s.
Well, 80s.
80s, yep.
Yeah, let's see, authorware, Dad started authorware, and I think it was incorporated somewhere around 1987.
Okay.
And it was here in Minneapolis for, the better part of about 10 years.
Right, it was called Authorware Inc. then, right?
Yeah, Authorware Inc. And we merged with a company out of Chicago called Macromind, and that's what created Macromedia. So then Authorware gained a full suite of tools that really got integrated well together, and it must have had at least 80. Authorware must have had at least 80 or more percent market share for an authoring tool. During its time, it ran for more than 20 years, and still stay close to the user groups. There's still an active user list out there, and they're talking about things that they're doing to keep it going, and still asking for help. And how do you do this, and how do you do that? And it's fun to see.
Yeah, I just wish Adobe would have just sold it off rather than just kill it. It's like, guys. I mean, it's funny, and you probably know this. The Adobe people at one point had actually created, or maybe the Macromedia people did, they had a Flash version of it.
The intent was to have authorware actually push out a SWF, and I know that there have been rumors of, but I haven't seen a version of authorware that in beta that actually does that.
Yeah, I know some of the developers who were there, and they said it was working. And unfortunately, the development team it went to didn't quite get it, and they stopped it.
I think one of the things that kind of killed authorware in the long run is the team that managed it and continued development with it wasn't very connected to the e-learning market at all.
Right.
So they didn't understand. I think why it was so popular.
Exactly.
And the power of it. And then development. As I heard, through rumors, so don't quote me, but they pushed off development to India in hopes of having that.
That is what happened, and that's pretty much what ruined the product.
Right, and
but
then
don't
they got
me on that one either. But I do know.
Now what? So that it's pretty cool that a product like that had more than a 20 years run and a strong following, and we're hoping to do that again.
Yeah, and you've got an exciting new product. And
we do.
Now, how did you come up with the name ZebraZaps?
I love that name.
Thanks very much.
It's so different that it's really cool, actually.
Memorable.
That's part of the idea. When Dad and Steve Berth, who's one of the chief engineers, the chief engineer for authorware, when there was just three of them working in my parents' basement, in the very early 80s, getting authorware started. AuthorWare had a code name. And in fact, before AuthorWare it was called Course of Action, but it had a code name during development. And when the gang got together here in Allen Interactions and started development on it, they wanted a code name because they didn't have a product name. And they talked about, well, do we call it AuthorWare 2 just for fun? Or the conversation got to saying, well, we've come full circle and it's been a long time, so we should go from A to Z. Which is how then we needed a code name that ended on Z, and at the time when they first got started building ZebraZaps, my wife and I got married, and the inspiration came from for Zebra came from photos and talks of our honeymoon trip, and Zapps is the end part of it is a play on words. So in Zebra you make applications, but in this case you share them, and the way that you share them is so easy. You zap them out to friends. So in Zebra, you make applications and you zap them out.
Oh, that's cute. Actually, I really like the website you did for it and the music. It's so catchy. We're all sitting there. I was playing it for some of the people in the office the other day, and we're all just kind of dancing along with it. It's very catchy. Kind of like watching The Lion King.
We have Lily, who's joined us here on Justin TV, and she's trying it out right now as we speak.
Fantastic. Thanks, Lily.
Yeah.
Now tell Lily she needs to focus on the show.
Focus.
You'll learn some very interesting things while you're here and be able to translate them and be successful with Zebra.
Yep. That's great. Now, what was?
I can't wait to see it. I want to see it.
Yeah, you will, and it's pretty cool. What was the motivation behind developing ZebraZaps?
Sure. Allen Interactions, which is shares office space with ZebraZaps. We've been in business for I want to say more than 15 years now, creating custom e-learning for organizations outside of Allen Interactions. So a company comes to us with a training need, and we've got dedicated studios who work with their content experts and build instructional design, and then we do all the production in a variety of tools and push it out. What we're running up against is that the tools that are out there just aren't strong enough to create the type of interactivity we feel as an organization is necessary in order to create a lasting impression on the user or on the learner, so that when they return back to their organization and their job, that they've got the context and the motivation to carry forward the material that they were taught. And it's gotten to the point that if you want to do really rich interactive media, you have to have just a crackerjack staff. They need to be versed in a lot of different tools, and the tools aren't there to help you do it quickly, and it needs to be managed, and it just gets to be cost prohibitive for a lot of organizations. So we were looking internally at, we're a very heavy flash studio or set of studios. We do a lot of work coding right in AS3 instead of inside the the flash shell itself, and we're running against limitations, and we want to do things from a design standpoint that just become cost prohibitive. And we know that there are best designs that if we had a tool that could make this faster and cost effective for the client, why we'd really be ahead of the game. So we were taking a look at, okay, what's out there? Does it look like anybody's going to come up with something? And we felt the answer was best solved internally. So we've gotten the band back together. I should say my dad's gotten the band back together and has invited me along. And that's the course that we're currently on with ZebraZaps, is trying to find a way to build interactive media quickly and effectively so that just about anybody can do it, and it becomes the norm instead of a limitation.
That sounds great. And you're right. If you really look at some of the things you've done with this versus what's out in the field, and when I was looking at the demo you sent me, it's real obvious that it can do a lot more than most of the authoring tools in terms of logic, in terms of choices, and that's the part I really like, the way you've structured it, and it looks fairly simple to use.
It's it's turned out, part of my job has been to work with a lot of different groups here internally, both instructional designers and people who build projects for us, but also to take our tool to the greater world and experiment. Who can learn this, who can use it, who would benefit from it. So we started with our internal group, and then we branched out to college kids, and then we noticed how well they took a hold of it, so we started on our family and friends, and we moved all the way down to a 10-year-old who's produced videos and training material for kids. So it's accessible, and there's some fun stuff on. It's up on Vimeo, and it will be up shortly on our website about creating drag and drop interactions for kids. And he built something for his 5th grade class. And they used it on a smart board, so people got to come up and do the drag and drop right on the smart board, and that becomes really fun and tactile. And his name's Eric, and he related to all of us that after showing it, all the kids asked, how do I get a copy of ZebraZaps, because I want to build that stuff too. So it's been fun to see who grasps it.
Yep.
So we've gone from studios to 5th graders. I have a friend who's a tax attorney, and he got it. So if a tax attorney can do it, anybody can do it.
There is that. Yep. That's funny. Now you guys have been through several iterations. This has been an evolving. It almost started like a lab project and then evolved into the full-blown project. I think you guys were almost released about a year ago, and then you held back and did a lot of rework. That's what I heard.
Well, we've been, we work on an iterative design process, a lot like what we do with our clients. Having before I was in the role that I'm currently in, I had a lot of connection with my dad before he actually hired me, working on his books, talking about the design process for creating e-learning. In this latest one and the last couple ones, talking about an iterative process where you get a chance to try it and feel it before you really refine it and you make it solid. So all along, over the last 2 years, we've certainly been taking Zebra to real projects. And in fact, we've got a couple of projects that we'll be pushing out shortly with our studios. And it's learning from that and actually playing with it and being fluid enough and conscious enough that you can throw away good work in order to do something better. So the end result, which is released now, and we've got a pro version which is going to add some features coming very shortly, we really feel like meets the needs of e-learning professionals, because we've been doing the homework and testing it out before sending it out to the mass market.
Yeah, it's looking really good. I remember you sent me, I think maybe about 6 months ago, you sent me a trial version of it, and it's changed a lot since then. It looks a lot cleaner, and it looks like it's really running a lot faster. Everything's looking pretty good.
Yeah, we're certainly always trying to make it better, and the bar is always set high, which is fun. When you work with when you work with a family member, sometimes that bar can you don't know where it's going to be.
It's usually high.
I was going to ask you how that went. I mean, the dynamics are so special.
So that's something to get acquainted with, but it's not just one person in this case. It's everybody. The team has a lot of fun with this project, showing it and using it themselves. The guys who are actually engineering it and putting it down, they're using it for their family and friends and educational projects at home. And so everybody has a high bar set for this product, and that's why you get so many refinements so quickly. The other thing that's advantageous for us is the model that we plan on selling Zebra with, which is software as a service. So we'll always be refining and adding extra services and features across the board, and so that's it can be for someone who's been in part of traditional software development, where you actually have a release and then you kind of have a big party and a month and a half nap, and then everybody gets kind of kicked around, and then 2.0 gets started.
Yep.
With the software as a service, the product's never finished.
Right.
The product's never complete. And so I think everybody, the community, especially e-learning community, is going to benefit from that.
Hey, Christopher, or I should say Chris, Lily had a question. She was curious. She said, how will they handle the present HTML5 hype? What do you think about that part?
Sure. Well, you can take a look at it in a couple of ways. One of the first, I think, that's just educational for anybody is to take a look at what browsers and what future browsers will support HTML5 and what features of HTML5 they will support, because it's not a clean across the board answer. Safari, Apple Safari is by far the most cutting edge as far as HTML5 goes. You take a look at Internet Explorer. I don't know if it's 12, Internet Explorer 11 or 12 that will be fully supporting HTML5.
And by IE 150, it may actually work.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So for a large organization, who's got an IT department who's a little bit militant, there are some real challenges there, and the challenges fall to us too, because we're going to have certainly a platform that lives in lots of different spaces, and HTML5 will be one of them.
That's a really good point, Chris, because if you look at most large corporations, a lot of them are still on IE6,
right?
IE7. Some of them are getting to 8, maybe 9, but they roll out real slowly. I mean, we work with GE a lot, and they're still, I think they finally moved up to 9, and they skipped from 6 to 9. I mean, but it took them a long time to get there.
Sure.
Literally 10 years.
And financial institutions, follow that same arc, in that, if they've got systems that are very dependent and secure, they're going to test whatever it is that they're going to use for a year, maybe a year and a half, before they flip it over. So I don't want to sound like I'm trying to skirt the issue, but the issue is real for learning projects, in that if there are requirements within your organization as far as what you can and can't run on your computer, HTML5 isn't quite ready for that scenario.
Got it.
And it's still being developed. So the things that we can do now in Zebra, not being a super techie, I do understand that there are some limitations in that what we can do now in Zebra can't all be directly ported to HTML5 quite yet.
Sorry, keep going.
I was going to say, or ported in a way that will run consistently, right? Because that's the key, especially for somebody who's a designer. They want to be able to produce something and know that it's going to run perfectly in the environments that's in front of them. So we want to make sure that when we release a version of Zebra that fits in that space, that it's reliable and it isn't frustrating. I mean, when you've got a drag and drop interaction, you want it to drop on the target, right? Not near the target.
Right.
So,
right.
That's the challenge, and a very exciting challenge in front of us. But we've got a path that we'll be talking about this spring and through the summer.
Very good. As we were chatting, she said that she's the one who's been tweeting you. Her name is Liv Weymouth. I'm hoping.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's who I've been calling Lily, is Liv Weymouth.
Well, good afternoon and good morning, Liv. It's fun to engage and answer questions about our product on Twitter, because having such a visual product, something where you complete things visually, questions are fun to answer, because without the product in front of you, at least I'm at the point where I can answer a lot of questions without having to dive in and search through menus and all that sort of stuff, because that's just not the way you do things in Zebra.
Now, it's interesting because Leva is an engineer. I believe she's a mechanical engineer or construction engineer. So I bet you she could find some pretty good uses for this product too. If she's a professor, and so this could actually be pretty interesting for some of the stuff she's doing. Now, I noticed one thing. The pricing
she's a construction engineer.
Construction engineer.
Yeah.
Now,
Cool.
I noticed I was on the website last night, and the pricing for the product is very reasonable.
We hope so. Was reading a report, I believe Joe Gansey did just recently, talking about what instructional designers and e-learning professionals use as far as tools go. I'm trying to remember what organization commissioned Joe to put that report together. But he was talking about, it's a bag of tricks, right? You use more than one tool,
Sure.
And you use the right tool for the right project, as you should. You shouldn't be using, a screwdriver to pound in a nail. So everybody's got an arsenal already, especially if they're in the profession. And some of the other tools are really quite expensive. So for us to become part of somebody's toolkit, we felt like we needed to have a gentle entry point. We also think that with this tool that there are more people that could participate in design and construction of applications. So, those people may or may not have purchased a Pro Tool before, and by Pro Tool, something that cost a couple $100, or upwards of $1,000 to put in their toolkit.
Yep.
So we want to make sure that there's an opportunity for them to give it a try, to publish it and use it without restriction. And so our pricing at this point is definitely geared at being part of a current suite instead of replacing a tool and making that decision difficult. Because there's lots of people who love their current tools, which is great. But we want to make sure that we're able to both play inside their current work. So if they create something in Zebra, they can drop it into an Articulate or a Lectora piece without having to completely redo everything, and get accustomed to it and acquainted to it, and live with it for a while before you have to, really sink thousands of dollars of effort into it.
Yeah, and there are definitely things in this tool that you're not going to find in any of the other tools right now, at least none of the major ones. And I think that's part of the attraction, that not only is it an authoring tool, but you've got a lot more capabilities and again, fairly easy to use. So the learning curve shouldn't be that hard for most people. If they can figure out simple logical things, I think they can really fly with this thing.
Yeah, I that's the belief that we hold too. Growing up and being exposed to e-learning for the past 30 years, one of the things that was preached at home was that an e-learning and instructional designer needs a superset, not a subset of functionality when it comes to a language or a tool, in order to create an environment that feels real, that has real consequences. Yep. And that's hard. If you're limited by a tool that doesn't allow you to easily create an environment where there are lots of different consequences, so it feels real, the output is going to be extremely hampered. And I'm sure we've all seen projects that have been hampered by the tool in some way, shape, or form. So AuthorWare was built with the idea that designers needed something that was, maybe not designers. Let's start with educators. They needed something that was easy enough that they could get a hold of, get a grasp of, and be the content expert in, right? So it's the content expert that's probably the closest to the material as far as teaching it to other people. And so that was the goal with AuthorWare, is to make that relationship a lot closer to the subject matter expert. When you take a look at Zebra, it's the same challenge. How do you get a superset of features? And today's computers can do a heck of a lot more than they could in '87. Mm-hmm. So the superset got even bigger as far as interactivity goes, and what feels real and what user expectations will be just navigating around on a computer. So that's what the challenge was with Zebra, is how do you get consequences easy enough to program and to create inside a tool that it's comfortable for anybody to do it.
Yeah, that's true. And like you said, the price point right now is very reasonable. So as a result, you shouldn't have, if you're out there and you haven't tried it, go do it. It's well worth the money, and you're not going to spend that much, and you're going to get a pretty good result out of it. I guess I've just joined your sales team, Chris. So
I want to see a demo.
Well, we're building up excitement. We're going to get there.
I know.
Actually, we are going to do the demo. In fact, here's a quick one. This is actually really cool. This is a project being developed very quickly, and so this will take probably about a minute, and you're going to see a whole project, and then Chris is going to break down some of what was done in this to kind of give you an idea how they got there. And keep in mind, as you're watching this, how long this would take in current tools. And there aren't many that could do this easily unless you go to Flash, and you're going to spend a lot of time doing this in Flash. So, and the average person just isn't an action script guru to do this kind of stuff. So here we go. This is, Chris, you want to give us a quick intro? This is the iChart one, I think.
Sure. This application is to experience two different types of eye conditions that are out there, myopia and hyperopia. And Zebra here, as we're watching someone create, this is sped up a couple times faster. You notice just above the stage there's a clock running, so this is showing real time. And the challenge here is to give the user an opportunity to see what the focal point and the vision would be like if you had either myopia and hyperopia, putting in some text and feedback, and then giving somebody an opportunity to explore with it.
So we're 5 minutes into the design here.
Yeah, 5 minutes into the design, we're starting to build some functionality. The main moving piece here is actually the character, and we're seeing it pulled forward and back. And we're blurring the eye chart at the back. And when you choose either hyperopia or myopia, the two buttons over there on the left, the type of blur and the distance to the eye chart changes.
Got it.
Yep. And that was cool. There we go. We just did it. We just built it. And if you look at the effort done to do that, and if you had to do that in regular tools, even if you had to do that in Flash, it would take quite a while. And
you'd have to write a script.
You'd have to write a lot of script, probably.
You'd have to know some syntax, and you'd have to know some math. And I'm not saying that it's below a lot of people, but it's maybe more effort than a lot of people want to put into their projects to come up with a pretty calculated scenario like that, where at some point your vision gets degraded, and when you change the type of eye condition without leaving one project and using the same figure, you get a completely different result.
Well, no, and I like some of the things you did, especially like blurring, and which were done very, very simply. I mean, you've got graphics in there, but just the way you position. You move a person forward, backward. That takes a little. If you had to do that, you'd have to understand mathematically what's going on. It made it pretty easy. Now, if we play the next one, this is the real-time version of this as you're actually doing it, right?
Yep.
Now, I warned Chris, there is a little bit of a lag. He's watching this on Justin TV, as all of you are. And well, actually, before we do that one, are there any questions in the chat room? Anybody have questions or comments at this point? This is your chance.
So we don't have a question just yet, but probably some eagerness to see that demo.
All right, so let's do the demo then. All right, Chris, so I'm going to launch the second part. This is the real-time version of the iChart demo.
Okay.
So one of the first things that is notable about Zebra is that we are a cloud product, so everything is running inside the browser. So when you import an asset, as we did here on the screen, you're actually putting it up to your account in the cloud, and then no matter what machine you're on, you're always going to have access to your application and to your assets. The real meat and potatoes of the visual results are all done inside Zebra with native properties. We're taking the image of the man and placing him on a path. And in fact, he's already on the path. And so if you start moving him back and forth, he's attached. And then the path, which is the line in between the man and the chart, you can give whatever range of values you'd like. So it could be from 30 to 55. It could be 0 to 100. It could be negative 36 to positive 36. And then what you can do is you can map that value. So along the path, as you just move back and forth, we're reporting back a value inside Zebra, which is just inside one of those little message centers. And then to create the effect of blur and distance, you can take that value and then either just directly port it into another property, such as blur or zoom. And that's what created the main effect is as the man moves along the path, he gets zoomed, so the user feels like he gets closer to the chart or farther away from you. And at the same time, then we're going to start toggling back and forth back and forth blur based on which condition we're currently in. The other thing that for those people who haven't seen Zebra before, all the work is done on an object-by-object basis inside these black rectangles that are here down in the lower part of the screen called message centers. And the message centers contain everything that the computer knows about any one of the objects. So its height, its width, its location on the screen, and what the author then is empowered by is he can set up user interactions that change any one of those properties at runtime. And so, in short, the basis of this project is that the character is movable, and because he's movable and attached to a path, you're given just some basic values that you can then use to manipulate lots of different properties, and not just one at a time, as you see.
And there are a lot of properties. Now, what's the learning curve that you found for people on this? Do you have any kind of formal training or tutorials at this point?
We're actively building that. I think we're still there's a lot. It's an open-ended product in that when you jump inside Zebra, there isn't a set of steps that everybody has to do naturally, right? You don't start out with 4 steps every time and the same 4 steps over and over. So we don't have that comfort in teaching. So a lot of it has to do with creating something that's imaginative and transferable to what people currently do, and that changes from group to group. So we're actively building training material that's can be repurposed across demographics as well as specific training materials per demographic. But in most of the events that I've been a part of, and the people that I've worked with, and including family members who, like my wife is an auditor and has never used a Pro Tool before, she got up to speed with a little bit of home tutorial, and I want to say she was pretty proficient in building certain things after about 3 hours.
That's good.
And after a week, she mocked up. The internal system for their audit department inside Zebra, and built a short training course on how to input fringe benefits.
Interesting.
She spent maybe 9 hours working on the project, trying to recreate everything to make sure that it looked exactly like the tool that she used, and even gave some paths that put together some paths that were just totally irrelevant to the task at hand, so that people could experience. She spent maybe 9 hours building that project, and I want to say between the 12 hours that I spent with her, she's proficient enough that I'm sure she could build just about anything.
That's great. And as we were talking, we were showing that, and I cut it a little bit short, but I think we had 1 more minute to go and it was finished.
Yeah.
So in essence, it was about a 5-minute thing to do that, and I just keep thinking, well, that would have taken just a long time to do, even especially in Flash, and you can't even do that in some of the tools, at least not easily.
Right.
So in the case of your wife, she put in about 12 hours getting familiar with it and just trying to mock up something for the first time and kind of learning curving it. And now she could possibly have designed something like that quickly once she gets it.
Yeah, the trick with any tool, any programming language, anything that's got some complexity to it, I really feel like a couple hours in successive days is kind of necessary to get up on just the basics or the gist about what you're going to do. The learning curve for something like Flash and ActionScript 3 might be 3 years. I think anybody who's been using Pro Tools and has somewhat of an instructional design background, a week worth of effort inside Zebra, and you'll be able to do almost everything that you're currently doing. I would say no matter what the tool is.
That's helpful. If a user wanted to play around without making the purchase, if they just wanted to, get a feel for it, could they do that, or do they need to make the purchase and then they can get in there and start using the tools?
We're offering a 60-day free trial, and the free trial doesn't require entering in purchasing information up front. So I'm simply asking you to give it a try for 60 days, and then at the end of 60 days, I politely ask you for your business.
Got it.
So, and there aren't any restrictions. So if you signed up today, you should be able to I would hope. If I asked you to spend about 3 hours learning the tool, I think you'd be able to create something of interest. And before the end of your 60-day trial, you'd certainly have the opportunity to publish and embed an application that you built inside Zebra on a web page, inside your blog, or as I mentioned before, inside a Lectora project or an Articulate project. There's lots of different places you can place the output as long as you have access to the internet.
So you develop online, but then you can publish to whatever medium you want from there, correct?
Right. The publishing is fascinating in that the project lives on the cloud. So anywhere that you have access to the internet, you have access to both edit your project as well as play, a finished published project. And that gives you a lot of power in sharing and placing it. And so, if someone went out to my Facebook page or, you could see a Zap embedded right inside my wall. But you can also take it and put it inside, an Articulate project or a Lectora project, and if it's running on your machine and you've got access to the internet, inside that we just give you a little embed tag. There's not much to it. It's the location of your project. And there's lots of different tools that can pull up, a web page inside the project. I want to say in Articulate, it's like a live web object. Inside Captivate, there's a little widget that you can pull in to grab a live web page. And in Lectora, I think they actually take an iframe tag. So you just copy and paste this tiny little snippet of code that you get from ZebraZaps, and you can place it a lot of different places without having to know how to deliver something on a server or set up streaming media servers or anything special like that. The bar is very low, which makes these things that you create easily shareable, or for someone getting new into instructional design and e-learning, they ought to be able to publish just as easily as they publish a YouTube video.
That's great. And what we're seeing right now is, this one's actually particularly interesting.
That's fun to watch.
It's a lot of fun to watch, and we just saw him build in about a minute a voltmeter, which actually can measure and has all sorts of different settings. And that's having worked with voltmeters in the past, I was going, that's actually really, really neat. So
is that a light meter, a voltmeter?
No, it's an electrical, it measures electricity or current.
Okay.
For anybody who ends up, finding themselves at Home Depot on the weekend, it's a handy tool to have mastered.
This is true.
Okay.
And that last demonstration was actually showing using a voltmeter on a couple wires and then being able to test whether or not there's current. So the project in real time couldn't have taken more than 15 minutes to set up the user interface of something that felt and looked like a real voltmeter, as well as knowing where the two, it's the prod and the clamp have been placed on the panel, and then being able to set the knobs on the voltmeter correctly to measure whether or not there's current, and then report feedback.
Yeah. In fact, I think in real time it took you a whole 9 minutes.
Oh,
we do have the real time here, and it was 9 minutes. I can show a little bit of it because we're going to run out of time, but this thing took literally 9 minutes to do, and it's quite a bit of work to get a voltmeter with all the values, and it's just really neat.
Right. So you're taking a look at this project, and we're just setting up kind of some basic layout using basic objects inside Zebra to create a title and pose the question. Lots of different fonts and text types available to you. What's neat about this particular project is that the user is going to be judged on whether or not the wires have been placed in the right spot, but also whether or not the settings, the controls inside the voltmeter have been placed in the right spot. So you need to be able to do some sophisticated judging to see whether or not a whole collection of controls have been put in the right spot. And inside Zebra, we have what are called logic tables. And this one uses our answer judging table. What's unique to our tables, and especially the answer judging table, is that it remembers the order in which you did things on the screen. So if you turn the knob first and then you pressed a button second, we can take that information, and the author can, and quickly create some feedback on order, which is a significant task inside a lot of different tools.
It is, and most of them you'd have to fake it.
Yeah, absolutely. And our answer judging table is really quite a pleasure to work with, in that not everything needs to be in an order in real life, right? You might need to do 2 things in order, and then steps 3 through 5, it really doesn't matter, but then you got to finish with step 6. And our answer judging table gives you the flexibility of saying this property needs to change first, this property needs to change second, 3 through 5 just need to be done after number 2 and before number 6, and then do number 6. And so once you've got all of those things wired up into the answer judging table and selected visually, you just simply say this is property 1, this is property 2, here are the ones I don't care about, and here's property 6. Then you're given a whole host of ways to display feedback, and you can delay it or you can give it instantly.
Now, the interesting thing is, for those who haven't been doing e-learning that long, there were tools in the in the late 90s or mid 90s and early 2000s that probably aren't there anymore. At least I haven't heard from them in a long time, which would do these same kind of things, but for $5,000 or more. So you've got here the same kind of development engine that you would have had to pay a lot more money for in the old days, and it seems to have the same kind of capabilities. So that's exciting. These are things that we've all been looking for a long time, and now it's like, hey, they're back. So this is it's a good thing. You know, you could tell we're developers. So.
I'm curious. I'm noticing that in each of the examples, it seemed like what it was really good at is doing simulations, creating something out there in the world, putting it in front of you so you can manipulate it and play with it and learn from it. Would you say that that's its best application?
I think we've tended to create examples that show how easy it is to do that because it's hard to do it in anything else.
That makes sense. You pick the hardest thing.
Right, and we're as the team around here has excitement about being able to do those types of things. It's hard to get them to think about anything that's less than, right? Because that's the easy stuff. One of our challenges certainly going forward with this product is showing how easy it is to create things that are less involved and less simulation oriented. One of the other cool things that I'm sure a lot of people haven't seen inside Zebra, even if they have been using Zebra, is the concept of a reusable learning object, or something that can be reused lots of different times in lots of different places, but has real functionality and a lot of different content can be placed towards it. So inside Zebra, you can create your own question editor. You could create your own, one of the fun examples that I like to do is I like to create a progress bar. And you can create one of these objects inside Zebra using a team of the basic objects that Zebra gives you, wrap it up into a little container, and say, now this thing is an object, and I'm just going to reuse it on lots of different projects. And so that makes it really easy to do the really easy stuff. The things that you do over and over and over and over and over and over again.
I'm curious what the little ones did. Did you say an elementary school kid made something? I'm curious what that person made.
Yeah, Eric made a very interesting little project. Made a series of them, and you can see the videos on our Vimeo site, and they'll be up on our support section soon, of drag and drop interactions for a social studies class. So he had on the left side of the screen images of a geologist and a historian and an archaeologist. And then over on the right, he had the things that those people do, but in a messed up order. And the trick was to take the right character from the left and drag it over to the right. And then you were rewarded with videos every time you got it right of a historian and a geologist and an archaeologist to see what their real life was all about. So he's incorporated YouTube videos, and he's built a drag and drop interaction that actually judges.
And there's some complexity to doing a drag and drop and then having results like videos and stuff. That's good. I'll tell you, this is the
fun.
first time in a long time I've said "cool." I think like 5 times already. Thank
you.
It's a good word for this. Now, any other questions in the chat room?
Let's see.
Now that they've seen a little bit.
Not as of yet, but there's going to be a lot of people this week who are going to probably have some. What would be their best way to contact you?
Sure. We're going to be at a number of live events. Several I'm pretty excited about because I get to be teaching and up in front of the class and bringing new users to ZebraZaps. We'll be at Technology at the end of January.
I'll see you there.
We're doing live stuff there. And then I'll be in Atlanta the first half of February teaching some classes on Zebra at Training Magazine's conference.
And the website is www.ZebraZaps.com, correct?
Right. Yep, that's right. And I'm always available to answer questions and talk about our product on Twitter at C_more_zebras.
And if you look next to Chris's name, you'll see ZebraZaps. So just add the www and the dot and the .com at the end, and you've got it.
Yep.
I think this is
okay.
great.
Well, Liv is saying goodbye. I think she's going to be going to sleep if I'm reading this correctly, with a monkey face, smiley face.
Well, it's 9 hours later for her. So,
wow. Thanks for staying up.
Thank you so much. This has been really interesting to learn about ZebraZaps today.
Well, and thanks for inviting me on. It's been fun to talk to you. And
and you are the very first who we've actually done a demo with. So it's even more fun. So we were like, okay, let's see if this software can handle it.
Yeah, I want more of that. That was fun.
It's fun, and I think everybody learns a little bit from this. So we will have the show recording up probably within about a half hour, and I'll send you all the links to that. And we wish you absolutely the best of luck on this for you and the whole team there. Kudos, good job, and I think this is going to gather traction. And as people get used to it, I think you're going to see some pretty good groundswell here.
Well, thank you very much. We certainly hope so. And let me just take the opportunity to wish you and your families a Happy New Year, and we'll hope to see you down the road.
Thank you much. I'll see you at Technology.
Thank you.
Excellent.
I'll be there. I'll drop by. I'm teaching a couple classes on audio, but if it doesn't conflict, I'll definitely go to your sessions. I want to learn more about the product.
Thanks very much. Well, we'll look for you then.
Sounds great.
All right.
Well, Chris, I appreciate it a lot. If you can hang on for 1 second before we shut down. Jean, we'll see you next week. And
all right.
Again, thanks all of you for being here today.